Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another day of Teachers Talk Sports. On today's pod, we're going to update you on the last week of the Blazers, talk a little bit of football, and maybe eat a little bit of crow, as we might need to do.
How you doing? Delicacy.
How you doing, delicacy, Mr. Bry?
Oh, I'm doing really well. I'm doing good. You know, came off of an incredible weekend of sports that will be topped off with the national championship game. So I'm looking forward to that. But lots of football, lots of hoops as well. So it was a really great week. The scoreboard account looks fine. It could look better, but it could look worse. But, you know, all things considered, it was a great week over here at the Fenema House. How about you, buddy? How are you?
Exact same story, except for my scoreboard account's looking better than it ever has before. For all you loyal listeners out there, don't worry. I did win my $75 free bet.
Or
no, my $100 free bet. I played it safe with a parlay a teaser of the Bills and Saints. Was able to get the Bills plus a half point and the Saints only down 3, and both of those took care of business. So I was able to win that bet, putting me up, which feels fantastic. But yes, I've just been telling, like, even my students today, I was like, you know, my weekend was great. I'm so grateful to have this amount of sports to watch in the middle of a pandemic. It's just like, it's kind of been an amazing excuse to binge sports nonstop.
Oh yeah. I mean, you're never going to hear complaints from me about watching 6 football games over a 2-day span and then mixing in some basketball on Saturday evening as well. I mean, it was great. But yeah, I mean, hey, some people say you play safe, you play scared. But when you're talking free money, if they're going to give it to you, you take that. And I mean, we talked about this. We've been talking about these particular free bets for at least 2.5 weeks. And I got to tell you, going into yesterday, I was a little worried about that Saints part because, you know, we discussed via text, it's the 7 and the 3, which are those key numbers that you're trying to get through, even when you're teasing. So that was, you know, I was a little nervous for you, but man, Buffalo ended up, they were going to give you the scare early on Saturday morning.
They did.
But, you know, that's gambling for you. The highs and the lows, and the ones that I missed, the ones that I just barely missed. It's just, you know, I could write a very large book with some of the bets that have been this close. But all things considered, it's been great. And I mean, it was a good weekend for Blazers. I know we were over here trumpeting them and getting ready for the undefeated January, and then immediately they take an L, which is fine, as I like to say. But it was interesting, and I know that you and I both kind of glossed over the unique challenge that the Golden State Warriors are still able to provide. So with that being said, maybe we were a bit harsh on Steph, but it's not like we said, hey, he's buns now. We just said, you especially said, if he can't carry this team by himself, is that an indictment on legacy? And I don't think anything changes that, but I think maybe there's something inside him that kind of awoken, and I think he's really understanding that now, because he went bonkers against the Blazers, then he went crazy the 2 nights later. So he's on a high right now. The Warriors look pretty, I don't know, not terrible, I guess is a good way to put it. So maybe we got a little ahead of ourselves, but that's fine. When we're talking about a guy who should be still a top 10 player, I'm willing to take an L every once in a while. But he needs to be able to play a little better, and I think what you were going with that, like, overarching legacy, could he carry it by himself? That's still very much a real thing, and still something that we still need to be able to see improve. So I don't think, sir, you have anything to really go back on. I think that maybe, if anything, maybe took him a little bit too lightly, but that's fine. And that's the great thing about a 72-game season, is on to the next one. And I think we still get him one more time. So we'll just see what happens the third time around, I guess.
Yeah, I think you basically summed it up perfectly. I We took them way too lightly. We kind of wrote them off as scrubs. I'm glad that we got our pot out when we did, because as soon as we did, it became like a national story that apparently everyone was hating on his legacy. Maybe there was rumblings of that before we said it, but I hadn't picked up on it.
Johnny, this kind of stuff happens all the time where it's like, hey, there's a talking point, but Brian and Johnny really, really articulated it the best. So let's really get it going nationally. And I'd like to think it's coincidental, but it's not, Johnny. We are important. I would say we're the standard in the sports talk industry right now. I mean, it's us, Simmons. I mean, right? I in whatever order. I know everyone's got their own. Everyone's got their own little hierarchy about it, but we have a tendency to have that happen to us as we create these incredible storylines and dialogues, and other people want to ride our coattails. And I'm not going to sit back and be humble about it anymore. I know the work that we are doing. I know the content that we are creating for our 30s and 40s of fans. That it's important.
Including ESPN, apparently, who is harvesting our storylines.
But it's important to have a pulse on your audience, and that, sir, we are very keen on. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you to toot our own.
Just to tie it up, is that I hoped that I did a good job of prefacing that Steph is absolutely an all-time great. I was simply saying, this will be a test, and if he doesn't pass it, it doesn't mean that he's not an all-time great. It's just it would be a slight blemish on his legacy. However, since I said that, the man's been rattling off dubs and he's been killing it. He dropped 62. I think, he dropped 62 the next night. And so, apparently Steph is listening in too. And if you are, what's up, Steph?
Wardell, we respect you. We do. We just like your brother a little more, I guess. But that was crazy. It was just weird timing, and it was just like one of those things where it's like, did we really just go on a rant about this guy? And the next night he goes absolutely bonkers. But it happens.
The larger discussion point here is just that, like, this regular season is weird, and having these back-to-back, basically like mini playoff series in the middle of a regular season where you need to beat a team twice it's a piece of the puzzle this year. And maybe the Warriors looked horrible, but you could also look at it like they have two current Hall of Famers. One of them is in his late prime and a Hall of Fame coach, and it's going to be tough to beat that kind of talent 2 nights in a row on their home floor. So, it's not shocking that they beat us. It did look after that first game like we would take them, but, in retrospect, it's not shocking.
Agreed. And just one last thing on the Warriors. It must have been Gavin who sent it to us, but you saw that statistic about the Warriors, how they're like 26th in 3-point percentage. And if you just took Kelly Oubre off of that team, they'd be 4th.
Yeah.
And Kelly Oubre is a guy who was like, man, that was a steal by the Warriors to pick up Oubre. I really like this guy. And that's one of those times where it's like, man, I'm really glad that we don't have to worry about a Kelly Oubre on our team. Granted, we got somebody else that we worry about, but that was a very interesting thing. But the last weekend, so Sunday they lost to the Warriors, and then there was one of the more frustrating games that we've watched probably in a while in that Bulls game. And it's hard to really wrap my mind around what happened. And I was telling you and Gavin, this is one of the rare one of the rare instances. I dreamt about it. And it wasn't like just like one time, because I have sporadic sleep where I'll kind of wake up every couple hours. There was 2 different times where the Bulls showed up in my dreams, and I'm like, God, what is wrong with me? Is this really who I've become now?
Was it more Kobe White or more Zach LaVine showing up in your?
Well, I will say I've been on record liking Kobe. I like him a lot. I like his game. I like his athleticism. LaVine made some really ridiculous shots down the end that I was just like, these are not shots that he normally makes. So I'm okay with living with them. But it was tough to have a big lead like that. And they played so well in the first and so well in the third and awful in the second quarter and pretty bad in the fourth quarter. So it's just, there's a spot where within 4 minutes where it was just a bunch, if you look at the game log, miss, 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 miss. And it just goes back to a little bit of our rumblings about we just can't figure this rotation out. And again, fans, friends, we understand it's going to take some time to get this thing going. And that's why I continue to preach patience with Terry Stotts, the head coach, because we are in this hyperbolic culture where it's just always the blame turns to Terry. And Terry is not without fault. He isn't, but he also is a damn good head coach. And I just don't like an idea of firing in season without somebody better to come in. And so we'll see, but the adjustments need to be made. Again, we'll go back and refer to this month as a get right month. And I think that we're going to be moving towards a little bit more steadiness, hopefully, in the rotations. I don't know. I mean, it's a matchup league, so it can change day to day. But where are you? Because I know rotations have to be your biggest frustration, right? If I know you the way I do.
Yeah, no, they are. And I fully agree with you. I wish I didn't, because it would be more representative of the fan base if I didn't, because holy wow, man, like people are calling for Stott's head. And it's like, man, this isn't all his fault. It's if you like, I've actually spent more time than you would imagine trying to figure out how these rotations could look. I've like written down on pieces of paper, like, how could these rotations work?
Sure.
And just because of the roster that O'Shea put together, it's actually pretty challenging to maintain Covington and Derek Jones Jr. as a unit together, as a tandem, which they want to do because they make sense as a tandem. Mm-hmm. And also stagger Melo and Cantor's minutes without everything getting pretty wonky, like having guys just do like 3 minutes here. It's like pretty difficult to juggle that. Now, my personal suggestion would be just, don't re-sign Melo in the first place. But since we're in this situation, which is not Terry's fault, the play, like Dame and CJ really wanted him back. So if I'm the human that's in that job, even if myself personally, I wouldn't really want Melo. If I literally, John McGee was the GM of the Blazers and Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum said, please bring Melo back, I would probably make it happen. So, if I'm Neil O'Shea. So I just think that like Terry, it's not all Terry's fault that he has to juggle this roster, that the second unit is just full of ISO guys that don't play defense, essentially. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I just think that he's in a bit of a rough spot, and it actually really frustrates me that the fan base is so consistently calling for his head after almost every bad play.
Well, and that's one of the weird things is it started at the end of last season where I was starting to see some of the internet rumblings about the firing of Terry, and I'm like, these guys got to be out of their mind. I'm pretty sure he won Coach of the Month twice last year. So it's like, it's not like he's just some bum. People need to realize that I'm about it as long as there's a plan in place, but there is no plan. And it's not like great basketball coaches are just out there waiting for their jobs. It's like, who's the guy that you think is like, okay, number one, our two stars, love him. Number two, who's going to fit into this city? Number three, who's going to want to live in this city? Number four, what can they do to improve an already a very stellar, as far as playoff appearances, track record that Terry has? So, no, I don't think Terry needs to be the head coach for the next 10 years, but we need to continue to move forward with Terry until there's a better option, I guess. I mean, I think it's a little naive. The narrative is just like, well, it's Terry. Turns out at the end of the day, the players play and their effort, and maybe that's part of it, is maybe Terry's not getting the most effort wise. But like I said, Dame and CJ love this guy and they're going to go to bat for him. So that's where it's like, I don't know. Be careful what you wish for. That's always what I've said.
It's so true. Yeah. Well, it's just, and again, I've obviously never been in the NBA, but from what I can understand, just from listening to tons of interviews and reading a ton about the NBA over the course of many, many years, it seems like the main job of a head coach in basketball is to manage egos and to build relationships with the players. And then
Sure.
next, rotations are important. And then X's and O's are, I'm sure that they matter more than I understand. But from what I understand, it's not, it's not like a football coach. It's not like a coach in the NFL.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
X's and O's, like basically, it's like, yo, Yusuf, set a screen. Dame's going to come off of that screen. There's going to be a couple of actions in the corner, but like it's not like it's a highly complex system that these coaches are putting in on the offensive end. And so everything that I've heard about Terry from current players, as well as some former players whose interviews I've heard, is that he does a really great job of communicating to every player on the roster, top to bottom. And so if the main duty of a head coach is to manage egos and to communicate with players, from everything I've heard, he's really great at it.
He's doing it.
So I personally am not trying to call for his head. Who I have been more upset with, although I understand it. And, he had a great interview. Yusuf Nurkic had a great interview before he started to play a little bit better, where he would just like, I kind of like having these tough times, these struggles, because then I see who's there for me in my corner. And a couple of the people that were there for him in his corner, of course, were Dame and CJ. And he has started to turn that corner. And I just think it's like, is it Terry's fault that Yusuf came into camp 70%, that he came into camp out of shape? Like, is it Terry's fault that Nurkic might be battling with some like mental things right now because his family is struggling? Like, I don't know. I think that these guys are just humans, and we have to allow, especially in this COVID year, we have to allow some time for things to gel, come together, for people to get into shape, and just to see what we really have here.
Absolutely.
So that's how I feel about it.
Absolutely. And was there anyone else who was staying with Yusuf the entire time? It was me. I will never waver on,
of course.
on handsome Yusuf. Yeah, but you can tell there's something wrong. There's something up. I shouldn't say wrong, but there's something up. And like you said, he can acknowledge it, and he can still feel empowered by it because he still has a coach who believes in him, and he's still got a superstar that believes in him, and he's still got an emerging star who believes in him. So that's important. And you remove a coach from it, and it changes the biggest thing that I think that the Blazers have had for the last 3 years, and that's culture and flow and just like resiliency and like a really good brotherhood in that locker room. And that's what's been really great is Robert and Derrick Jones Jr. look like they are just like, we are just fitting right into this locker room. Because the thing that we continue to hear is culture, and unity in this locker room. And you bring somebody else in, and who knows what that looks like. So from those of you on the outside, you probably don't even hear it. You probably don't think it's a big deal, but we see it. We see it every game, even after wins. There's a couple of accounts that I follow very closely, and I'm like, I'm not seeing it. I don't know. When has it ever been the option? Like, I guess going back to a while ago, 1998, 1997, the Lakers knew that Del Harris was the problem. They knew we've got a young Kobe Bryant, a rookie Kobe Bryant, and we've got a super duper star in Shaq. And they knew, but they still held the position. I believe they gave Del an assistant position as well before they brought in Phil. So like they had a tentative plan in place and ready to go. We need to, no matter what happens, the Blazers could lose out. And I still feel like you need to go into the offseason and then find your guy. Let's just not use the quick out for people who are uneducated about basketball. And I think that's where it comes from, Johnny. Like, I don't want to make blanket statements about people on Blazers social media, but some of these guys, I'm like, what are you expecting? Like, what does the expectation actually look like as far as what you want out of Terry? But, with those downs came some ups. And granted, we had some ups. We got 4 games to talk about, and 2 of them were really nice where the Blazers kind of put together complete games. Yes, people are going to question the the teams that they play. The Wolves, basura. They are garbage. They're terrible. That's fine. But you beat bad teams. That's the important thing is you need to beat bad teams. And Sacramento, who I've continued to say is an emerging team, who I really like their trajectory going forward, maybe not this year, but I like their trajectory. it's important to beat those teams. And that's why Chicago hurt, because it's a team you're supposed to beat and you didn't. But that doesn't mean it's time to just bail. So there had to have been some good things that you can see that we're going to build forward with, right?
Oh, of course, absolutely. And my hopeful take is that Bulls game woke the Blazers up a little bit. It did seem like they came into the Timberwolves game with some real fire, and then they carried that over into the Kings game.
For sure.
And, we'll
saw
see
that for sure.
We got the Raptors tonight, who are another struggling team, but they have real talent on that team.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely something to watch how it continues. But the Bulls we should have beat the Bulls. We should have beat the socks off the Bulls, although they have played some good teams close afterwards. But what I saw was the energy was better in the next couple of games. And the real thing, in my opinion, to watch for this year is how the Blazers are in the defensive rankings for the league. That's like the whole question, because the offense is there. The offense is there again this year.
It's going to be there. Yeah.
It's there. I think they're fluctuating between 4th and 7th right now in the offensive ratings.
Yep. Uh-huh.
And in the defensive ratings, after that Bulls game, they were 29th out of 30, which is obviously horrible. And right now, after a couple of games against the Wolves, and then they held the Kings under 100 while scoring over 100 and over 120 themselves, their defensive rating is now 22nd. So really, fans, like, what we're shooting for is just to be right around 15th in defensive rating, and you pair that with the top offense, and we're looking at a really good team. So if you're looking for something that's a little bit under the radar to be gauging throughout this year, it's that where are the Blazers on the NBA rankings for defensive rating? Just take a look at that. Over the last 3, I think they're top 5 actually. That's definitely weighted because they just held the Kings under 100, but it's just something to look for. And from what I'm seeing, it's hard to really draw long conclusions from it right now, because over the last couple games, their defense has looked better, but they're also playing a lot less good teams. So it's something that I'm constantly watching, is seeing, are their rotations looking better? Are they giving up less wide open threes in the corner? And in the last couple of games, I would say the answer is yes. It just remains to be seen how much that is talent. If you're looking for one thing that's like clearly a positive though right now for me, is the trajectory that Yusuf is on over the last 3 games. He started to get it going. As I recall, he still didn't have a good game, but you started to see some flashes of energy in the Bulls game. And then in the Wolves game, he looked much better. In the Kings game, he looked almost like Yusuf Nurkic, which was very, very exciting. It'll be interesting to see how he looks tonight against Toronto. They go small now.
Yeah.
In their last game, their centers didn't even play. They didn't play what's that guy's name that they got from Aaron Baines? They didn't even play Baines. They didn't play Alex Len. Siakam was the biggest guy of the starters, and they didn't have any bigs off the bench. So it'll be interesting to see how Yusuf matches up with that, and Ennis for that matter too. But that is one thing. And of course, CJ is killing the league right now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think, like, if you look at advanced stats, he's top 5, top 10 in almost every advanced stat right now for the league, which of course it's a small sample size, but it's a shortened season. And CJ is killing it right now. By far the best start to any season in his career.
Oh, absolutely. And he's got the confidence, and he continues to fill it in. And it's just like, wow. I mean, we did it last week where we're doing the little going through who we think that he could surpass in order to get into that All-Star nomination. But if he keeps doing what he's doing, I don't think we're going to have to worry about it. He's just going to make the case all alone by himself. So that's incredible. But it has been weird. And you and I just going back and forth on text, we can't quite put a finger on it. But I think we're a couple weeks away from really knowing identity-wise and flow-wise who this team is. And it's one of those things. Before we get into the next thing, I don't know what to expect going forward though, because there's a few rumblings about maybe a little break here from the NBA because we're starting to deal with so much COVID activity. That it hurts my heart. It really it really sucks. It does. It sucks. I mean, one of the games for tomorrow has already been canceled. I don't even know what happened yesterday with the Sixers with 6 healthy bodies. It's tough. I mean, apparently there are some rumblings about the potential of a little. I don't even know if a break is the right way to say it. I think they got to kind of get together and figure out how they're going to handle these COVID outbreaks. Do you have any information that maybe I'm missing on these?
I mean, yeah, there was definitely a big uproar when they made Philly play. I think it was Mike Scott who was hurt, suited up to get over the limit, even though the Sixers didn't really want to play.
Mm-hmm.
And then yesterday, it was the Celtics and the Heat game got postponed because the Heat didn't have enough players, and the Celtics barely had enough players themselves, which was sort of like beside the point, just a coincidence. But I actually hadn't heard that. It makes me feel 2 things. The first thing is, take care of yourselves, guys. Like, of course, that comes first. I'm glad that Adam Silver is the commissioner, and I trust that he'll make the right choices.
Sure.
Although, with that being said, money absolutely has a lot to do with this. And then the second thing is the selfish take, of course, which is like, I am loving this rhythm of my life where I get to watch a Blazers game every other day.
Same.
So,
spoiler.
Both of those things are very real.
Yeah, it would be tough. It would be tough to kind of swallow because I'd be like, ooh, and I keep playing this emotional game in my head where it's like, man, I keep looking. We're getting so close to it being almost a year away from seeing live Blazers basketball. And it's just like, oh, I even shout out Coach P today. P and I were talking and I was like, man, it was, last game we went to together, pal, March 9th. But the next game was supposed to be the return of Yusuf Nurkic, and it was supposed to be on my birthday, and it got canceled. And that's just, that date is coming up, dude. Like it's fast approaching. We're like 7 weeks away from it being a full calendar year since we've seen it. And it's really tough. It really is, because basketball is so dependent on the environment, and football's doing a pretty good job. Like I felt like even with the empty stadiums this weekend, you're like, yeah, they're still doing it, but there's something about seeing all those empty spaces behind the players, and it's so much like emphasis and pressure on them creating their own energy. And it's just like, it's crazy. It's like we said, it's like watching sports on mute, and fans create so much of the story and the drama that we just need it back. But God, I don't know. I hate to be doom and gloom guy, but I just hope we can continue to fight through and get through it. And that's the thing is, when does that start to peak in? Like you just got to hope that with the NFL, they're doing the same thing where it's just like, hey, everybody, we are 1 month away from just no matter what being done. Just take care of yourself, be as safe as humanly possible. So it's crazy, but that's the world that we live in 2020 and 2021 is you have to be cognizant of what you're doing in your actions. And it would hurt to lose basketball, especially once football ends. It's like, hey, this is what we're supposed to have. This is carryover time. So hopefully everyone can take care of themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a logistical nightmare. I mean, even
sure.
Guys like Danielle House had a run in even in the bubble. It's just when a league has this many hundreds of humans that are a part of it, it's just I mean, even just going home for the holidays was tough, man. It was tough to like navigate, having all these variables and different people with different ways of thinking, and like, it's just like, so if you think about that on the span of hundreds of people from all over the country, it's just like, of course it's going to be a logistical nightmare. I want to take this opportunity to just say that I really do actively miss the fans when I'm watching these broadcasts. Even just on TV, the fans not being there takes away such amount of production value and energy just from like I really, really feel it. And the positive spin on that is that it will make me more grateful for the fans when they do come back. And also it is like, I try to just appreciate it for what it is, where it's kind of like, wow, this is just this blip in history where these NBA players, kind of like AAU style, have to be the only people to hype each other up from the benches. And just, I try to enjoy it for what it is. But man, when I watch old highlights like of Dame's wave or whatever else happens to come across my feed, and the fans just stick out to me so much and give me goosebumps almost every time.
Yeah. I mean, just we'll finish up with this, but I was just kind of walking around doing my normal routine on Friday in the gym, and I had this moment where I was just thinking back, and I had that moment where I took myself into remembering what that moment, that Dame shot was like, and thinking to myself, this is something I'll remember for the rest of my life. No matter what, if I don't go to another basketball game for the rest of my life, I'll still remember it. But just putting myself back in that moment gave me chills and goosebumps. And it's just like, I don't feel like there's that moment unless you have the fans. And we touched on it a few weeks back where I was talking about it was really weird to watch that celebration of the Lakers winning a championship in the bubble, because it's like there's a lot of really excited women and kids there, maybe 50 of them, but it's like you miss like Joe the plumber, Steve the electrician being there. Like those are the people where it just means so much because we invest so much emotionally and financially, and so it's tough. But I miss live sporting events so much. I really do. I miss it like crazy.
Absolutely. No, I do too. 100%. I want to switch up and talk a little bit of football. And you were talking about
cool. Yeah.
You were talking financial. We do commit to these things financially, and it just it reminded me. I was bringing it back to gambling. I'm new to gambling, y'all. And this guy on the other side of the screen here, Brian F, is a big reason why I got into it. He is my influencer.
I hope that's a good thing.
It's a good thing. I think it's a good thing as long as it stays in control.
Yeah, no more exactly. Yeah. Could you just say that again for the fans, please?
No more chasing Russian ping pong parlays.
Russian ping pong, ladies and gentlemen. Russian ping pong.
For real though. No, but when you do it right, well, at least what I'm calling right currently, which is betting on things that you feel like you kind of know, and then you use it as an opportunity to watch the event with a heightened level of interest. It's amazing. And this is what is so amazing about it. I had the most during this free bet experience. It was the most heightened version of this experience where basically for a low sum of money, I get to attach myself to a team or a player and feel as close as I can to actually like rooting for that player as if they're like, Damian Lillard or like one of my true blue guys.
Yeah.
And so this weekend, I got to attach myself to Josh Allen. And I was telling Eva, this is the best quarterback I've ever rooted for in this level of attachment. And so just like to watch this guy roll out and he's going to run it and then he comes up. I've never watched a quarterback that does the things that he does. And so just for that small amount of money investment to have that level of attachment to his ability was phenomenal. And so I do just want to, that's like my little speech on how awesome Josh Allen is, as well as my little speech on how gambling could be a really positive thing for a sports fan.
So I guess we could preface it by saying, listen, y'all, we are very responsible. I mean, I am. I don't spend your money for you, but I know you're responsible with it.
For sure. We're talking $5.
The way that I say it is it's beer money, like without too detailed of a look behind the curtain. If I'm doing a player prop, the most I'll do is $10. The absolute most I'll do on a game, period, is $100. And I've only done that twice. So like it's responsible money. We are grown men in our careers who have expendable income. Some of us have managed to keep a positive balance since we've been doing it. So I consider this a little bit of an investment. I know you don't hear that, Karen, but it's like an investment, Ma. Okay. Next, let's say I'd like to take you back. Okay, just get in the old time machine. Picture yourself right here in my living room, November to December 2018. You were cheering for the Kansas City Chiefs, so I take a little bit of a little notch where it's, oh, it's unbelievable to see this guy Josh Allen be the greatest quarterback of all time. And I know that's not what you're saying, but I've heard it a lot the past few weeks, and that's great. I guess the important thing for everyone is to clear the air. I like Josh Allen. I respect him. I know he's going to be a star. He's a Mountain West guy. I'm a Mountain West guy. We look after each other in the Mountain West. I don't know if you knew that, but we always look after each other in the MW. Now, there has been this little storyline over the past 2 to 3 weeks. Well, Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes are basically even. Are they close in talent? Sure. Has Josh Allen won a playoff game? Now he has. That's great. Has he won an MVP? No. Has he won a Super Bowl? No. Has he won a Super Bowl MVP? No. Stop comparing him to Pat Mahomes. He's not, okay? There's one person you compare to Pat, and it's Aaron Rodgers. And then the two of them together, they eventually become Tom Brady. So let's stop throwing guys out there, okay? Tom is the guy. He's the standard. The next closest are Aaron and Pat. And the next closest after that are somewhere down the road. All right. Let's get that through. All right. Going into the playoffs, incredible. And I will say, Buffalo is fun to watch. I like them. I like the way that they do things. I like the energy that they bring. They play with a little bit of that swagger that only a couple of teams play with. The Browns kind of play like that. The Chiefs got that swag. And then there's the Bills. They're fun to watch. They got playmakers, but man, things could not have been any better for the Kansas City Chiefs as what happened last night, because it's hard to have little stepbrother come at you again and again and again, trying to punch you in the midsection. And what do? You punch him in the face. And the Chiefs have done that 3 times in a row. And it could be, we'll see, maybe a 4th time. But the Ravens and the Bills matchup is way, way more scary than me having to worry about Baltimore then coming to Kansas City with this Baltimore team that has nothing to lose now. There's still a lot of pressure for Baltimore, and that's going to be the game of the weekend. I'm not afraid to say that. That's the one that I'm obviously going to be glued to. Obviously, I'll watch every single second and all of the dialect going into what's going to happen with Cleveland and Kansas City. But man, I am pumped the Browns beat the Steelers, because man, the Bills would have beaten the Steelers by 50.
You dodged a bullet.
Yeah, absolutely. For my sister sending out Cleveland rocks, I'm like, okay, we don't need to praise them that much. They're still going to be an opponent. And again, going back to a narrative I said earlier with Terry, sometimes we got to be careful what we wish for. Okay.
Right.
But I think I told you and Gavin this last night. If the Chiefs are down 28-0 right away against the Browns, are they still a favorite in Vegas' eyes?
Vegas,
like really?
I know. If they're down 28-0 after the first quarter, I'd guess that they'd be
like plus 120.
They'd be like 6-point dogs, I think.
Okay, but that's
like
fine.
If I'm watching that game and they go down 28-0, especially like if it happens the way it happened to the Steelers, where it's just like first snap of the game is a wild play that turns into a fumble touchdown, and it's just sort of like unfurls real quick. I'm expecting the Chiefs to still win that game.
Yeah,
reminded just they're that explosive.
Yeah, and without going into too much detail about X's and O's and everything, they're the right matchup for the Chiefs, because the Ravens present a very unique matchup, as do the Bills. But I've started to figure the Bills out. I really have. I've started to figure out what they do well and where they start to struggle. And they're not quite like Baltimore or even Cleveland or even Kansas City, where they can kind of get that push at the line of scrimmage, where they can kind of enforce their will. They've got a good defensive line, and it will be really interesting to see how they handle Lamar. But they're really good on the front four and the back four. And the linebackers are always the key against the Ravens, because those are going to be the guys that have to have eyes on Lamar. And just watching what the Titans were doing, they were basically they were playing nickel almost the entire game. So 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers, and then 5 defensive backs. And what they were doing is they were having that nickel corner was always on assignment, where it's either stay with the running back, and if he stays in, you are spying the entire time. And yes, Lamar is going to break up those plays, and he just has that wow factor. He really does, where it's just like, what? And he's like one of those guys where it's in the open field, and you're just like, nope, no one's catching him, and no one's not going to get their boots, juked out from underneath him. So he presents a little bit of a fun aspect as well, because I like watching him. I really do. I've got a lot of respect for Lamar, but that matchup's going to be so incredible. And I'm a Chiefs apologist, but yet here I am, super, super, super excited. And I don't know what to do with it, man. I really don't. I have no idea how I feel. I think the Bills are like a 2.5, maybe 3-point favorite right now. I don't know what to do with that, man. I really don't.
Yeah, no, me either. I personally, I think I'll stay away on that one. Mm-hmm. But I will watch it. I mean, that's the matchup of the week.
Yeah, it got the premiere window, and I understand it. But like, it seems like it's riveting. A lot of people are gonna be like, because we all want to know. There's still a couple of questions about both those teams. Is Buffalo ready to do it? And Baltimore's looked like they've been ready to do it for 2 seasons now. But are they really, really ready to take that next step? And I think that we go into that narrative of the nobody believes in us, and that's the Browns right now. But are the Ravens maybe carrying a little bit of that? Probably. But I also think the Chiefs are bringing a little bit of that energy as well, where they're like, everyone has written the Chiefs off for the most part. They're still the favorites as far as winning the Super Bowl. But how many people are you like, you know what? It's going to be the Chiefs. It has to be. A lot of people are starting to question
the Chiefs off. Listen, this is what's happened in media narratives.
They hate us.
It happened with LeBron each of his last 5 years in the East. Nobody wants to hear over and over, this is the best team. It's obvious, and they're still the best team. At a certain point, you gotta what the media machine does is they create these narratives. And so it happened with LeBron time and time again. They're like, wow, the Cavs are really struggling at the end of the regular season. Mm-hmm. They're probably doomed. And then he gets there every year. And I think, the NFL is more of a toss-up. It's not as a sure thing as the NBA, where in the NBA, if you have the best couple of players, you're pretty much going to make it.
Yeah.
Football, there's a little bit more random to it. But I think that I honestly, as someone that's more impartial, my view on it is they're just trying. They just got to find something to talk about. So they're going to say that the Chiefs aren't doing very well. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. And maybe the Chiefs can use that as a way to motivate themselves. Like, oh, they're counting us out, even though we're by far the most talented team. Mm-hmm. As an NFL fan, I was a little bummed that the Browns won, because I just would have much preferred to see the Chiefs have to go through the Ravens and the Bills. I just think that would have been more exciting as an NFL fan.
Yeah.
Is there any part of you as a Chiefs fan that's worried about overlooking the Browns in a playoff game?
No. Okay. I just look at what Cleveland does well, and I look at what Cleveland doesn't do well. And Cleveland gets an okay pass rush from one guy. Olivier Vernon blew his Achilles out in the last week, and so that kills everything. Their back end is terrible. They're gonna have a really hard time covering. Their linebackers are meh. I like Christian Kirksey a lot, but that's about it. They run the football, which is great, but I'd be way more afraid of the Titans than the Browns. I mean, I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but the Chiefs are going. I mean, I'm feeling really confident that the Chiefs are going to beat them, and they're going to be able to hang out. But this is a very similar script to last year. And when the script unfolded like this last year, I was like, I feel pretty confident about this Chiefs, who weren't a favorite going in last year. They were not. They were playing pretty average ball going into November, and they kind of started surging, and things fell into place. New England losing to Miami week 17, the Chiefs getting that 1 seed, then New England ending up losing right away, which the Chiefs would have beaten New England either way. But this is a very close script, and I like where the script is moving. But you're right. I think there's a little bit of us as fans who it would have been nice to see the Chiefs have to beat Baltimore and Buffalo in order to be crowned champs. So I'm a little bit upset, but I am not going to complain about path of least resistance. Never.
For sure. No, as a guy who's rooting for a team to win a title, it's a perfect situation for you.
Yeah.
So before we sign off here, we got the national championship game that's starting right now.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
soon, 3 minutes or so.
Soon. I'm personally excited as a fan of the NFL that watches for draft prospects mostly. I'm excited to see what Mac Jones looks like, as well as how Justin Fields comes up in the title game. Everyone's picking Bama. You on that wagon too, or you think Justin Fields is going to gut it out?
I think Bama wins. I think probably by 4 to 10 range. I don't know. Not sure what to expect with Justin, but hell, he looked good last week, and he took some shots. And so
one in particular,
it was really good to see him gut it out. I like Justin. He's really well put together. You put a mic in front of him, and he's just ready for it. So he's already a mature, grown guy who's ready to move. I like it. I just don't think that they have the top end talent to deal with what Alabama brings. And this is one of the first times in this Bama dynasty where it's like, this is a team that's going to score and score and score. They don't have those front end guys, those top end guys where you're going to get 3 or 4 guys in the first round taken off of your defense. They are offensively focused, and they're bringing Jalen Waddle back this tonight as well. Not sure what kind of impact he will make, but Jalen Waddle is probably the best wide receiver that they have. And the other one just won the Heisman. So, they're going to be okay. But it's going to be a good game, and it's going to be really entertaining. And for a fan of a team like you, where you're like, I'd really like to have a quarterback who has some movement, this is a good one for you to watch, because it's a completely different lens of how you will view Mac Jones and Justin Fields. So it's actually really exciting for you. And I'm excited to watch this game for sure. It's going to be good. But I'd say Bama in that 4 to 8 range probably.
Yeah. No, I'm excited to watch Justin Fields just as an amazing athlete. The Niners obviously won't have a chance to get him. And I'm excited to watch Mac Jones as potentially like a second round type guy that maybe the Niners could go grab. We don't need to spend too much time on this, but Deshaun Watson?
It's going to be the story of the offseason, and I think that's going to be exciting, but it'd take a lot, dude. Plus he's already getting a lot of money. So that's going to be something, but we're going to have a lot of time to focus on this of course. As the NFL season starts to come to an end and basketball hopefully stays in and is doing everything correct. It'd be really incredible to start diving into what is a very talented draft class, but there's a lot of guys who you're like, I don't know who this guy is, because maybe they opted out. So going forward, but man, I'll tell you, Johnny, there's going to be quarterbacks available. And for a team like yours, the San Francisco 49ers, who are a healthy body away, I'd be very, very excited looking forward to how this goes. And I can understand why you would be excited about watching this game so much tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, any last thoughts before we sign off?
It's always fun to do this, and I can't wait to do it again. I think we'll probably do it next Monday again. That way we can digest everything that happened with the games, because the football games are going to go a little bit later. But as long as you all continue to listen and continue to consume, we're going to keep putting out some content. I think that maybe next week we're going to be have a little bit better of an understanding of who the Blazers are, but it's a week to week thing. And I can't wait to continue to watch this team grow as long as we stay in place. I don't think there's trades out there that need to be made. I don't think there's firings that need to happen. Stay the course. I'm Mr. Run It Back, but stay the course and work it together. And I think it's going to be a great week to be a Portland Trailblazers fan.
I agree. Mr. Run It Back has never been in a better place, man. CJ's making you look like a genius.
I mean, just one of many examples.
One of many. All right, brother. Great job. Always a pleasure. I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. All right, brother. Later.
All right. Bye.